on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06 on O'Connor and Company as we plow into our second half of morning radio. If you missed any of our broadcast up until this point, please subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss a thing because, well, you don't want to miss a thing. Rick Grinnell, the former ambassador to Germany and a former part of the Bush contingent in the UN during the Great War on Terror, Global War on Terror, had really good insight, obviously, on foreign relations and issues. And he reflected on Kamala Harris's statement when Ukraine and Russia were on the brink of war. You'll remember Putin spent like 2 months building up the military along the border, and Kamala was sent there to sort of prevent the war, right? And you'll remember Kamala Harris's statement at the time.
Do you feel that this threat that has been looming is really going to deter him?
By the way, this is the threat of sanctions. The Biden administration threatened sanctions against Putin to keep him from invading Ukraine at the time.
Absolutely. We strongly believe. And remember also that the sanctions are a product not only of our perspective as the United States, but a shared perspective among our allies. And the allied relationship is such that we have agreed that the deterrence effect of these sanctions is still a meaningful one, especially because, remember also, we still sincerely hope that there is a diplomatic path out of this moment. And within the context then of the fact that that window is still although it is absolutely narrowing, but within the context of a diplomatic path still being open, the deterrence effect, we believe, has merit.
Could I get a side of ranch with my word salad, please? Because I like to sort of, no one knows what that means. And of course, spoiler alert, Putin invaded Ukraine. We're still in the midst of this war. And as Ambassador Grinnell pointed out, we're seeing the same kind of pattern of behavior here with this Iran-Israel thing. We keep hearing all these warnings. This is about to happen. It's about to happen. We're not doing anything. This is the disconcerting thing, and I'll explain to you or relay to you what we're getting reported out of The Independent in the United Kingdom. President Joe Biden apparently held round-the-clock crisis talks on Monday. Does anyone believe that Joe Biden participated in round-the-clock anything?
But they did have the nice photo.
In the Situation Room.
Yes.
And you notice Kamala Harris's hand was on her chin.
Yes.
Because she was thinking. It was thoughtful.
She knows that is the thinking pose. Yes.
Amid fears of an imminent retaliation from Iran that could bring the Middle East to the brink of an all-out regional war, Mr. Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken engaged in frantic diplomacy to try to ease tensions triggered by a suspected Israeli attack that killed Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. At least 5 U.S. soldiers, by the way. This didn't get a whole lot of reaction. And by the way, you mentioned the picture that was put out showing Biden and Kamala Harris in the Situation Room. That picture was put out an hour after the report of 5 U.S. soldiers being injured in a rocket attack against a military base in Iraq. No statement about the injured American soldiers.
Yeah.
But we got the picture. We got the photo op put out there.
And
look at us being serious and talking about all the things and nothing about the soldiers.
And everybody in the media is sort of talking about the U.S. can be dragged into this war. We already are. We've got 5 injured soldiers. We already are there.
Yeah.
Already.
President Biden's X account, which is not actually anything that Joe Biden knows about or even utilizes, but whoever runs it put out a statement. And normally the statement would read like this: earlier, I was briefed in the Situation Room on developments in the Middle East. But that's not what the statement said. The statement said this: earlier, Vice President Harris and I were briefed in the Situation Room on developments in the Middle East. We received updates on threats posed by Iran and its proxies, diplomatic efforts to de-escalate regional tensions, and preparations to support Israel should it be attacked again. We also discussed the steps we are taking to defend our forces and respond to any attack against our personnel in a manner and place of our choosing. So, and again, I was referring to Ambassador Rick Grinnell, who said Joe Biden and Kamala Harris told the world that Russia was about to invade Ukraine for 30 days before it happened. They didn't take action to stop it. Now, Blinken is announcing that Iran is going to attack Israel. Why don't we try and stop wars that we know are about to happen?
Yeah.
And there's nothing going on. And I just want to point out here, this is all about weakness. This is about weakness and about a muddied message to the rest of the world about what America stands for, who our allies are, who the bad guys are in this region, whose side people should be taking if they want to be on our good side. These things were all very clear when Donald Trump was president.
Yep.
That's why we got the Abraham Accords. And he said, I'm moving my embassy to Jerusalem. You want to be nice with us and you want to deal with America, you better start dealing with Israel. And look what happened. Countries started making peace with Israel. Now we've got this ambiguity. We've got Kamala Harris holding this pretend cosplay summit with Benjamin Netanyahu with the little flags and sitting on the side of the tables. She comes out with a statement that says, well, sure, Israel has a right to defend itself, but, we need to work diplomatically with the terrorists. And
I know, yeah.
And what did Benjamin Netanyahu did? He went home.
Scorched earth.
And he killed as many
The
of
Godfather.
those leaders as possible.
That's right, because he knew.
He had to make an unequivocal
That's right.
message because the U.S. won't. And now suddenly we're on the brink of war. And yes, several U.S. personnel, we're told 5 now, were injured in a rocket attack against a military base in Iraq. Last I checked, if you shoot a missile at an American military base,
That's a
That's an
pretty
act
clear
of war.
indication that they want war with the U.S.
One wonders how this does affect the calculation going on within the Democrat hierarchy about whether Josh Shapiro is appropriate as a running mate.
Well, but really quickly, you talked
Yeah.
about Biden and weakness. Yesterday, he was asked coming out of a.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Do we have that?
I don't know if we have the clip. It's in here.
Yeah. Hang on. Well, the audio is kind of hard because he's far away, but a reporter shouted to Joe Biden about the about the Iran-Israel situation.
Do you think Iran will stand down? Do you think?
I don't know if you heard him. He said, what?
Yeah.
So, that's actually my favorite part of it. Huh? What? But then she asks again.
Think Iran will stand down, sir?
He yelled,
I hope so.
I hope so. I don't know.
It's funny. I saw that clip and I was sitting with my husband and I said the better answer is they better, right? Something. I don't know.
Do you think Iran will step down? I hope so.
I don't know.
I don't know. As if he's just watching this go by, as if, he's just a passive participant in this thing. But, it does, frankly, that's superior to his message for the last 3.5 years on Iran. Whenever asked about anything, what would he say? Don't.
That is the
Don't.
answer.
What's your message for Iran? Don't.
That is the answer to how do how are the Americans going to do in the Olympics today?
Right.
Are they going to win gold? I don't know. I hope so.
Well,
that's a more appropriate answer for that kind of question, not what's going on in the Middle East.
We've gone from the fake bravado and the pretend acting like Clint Eastwood by squinting your eyes and saying, don't.
Yes.
Don't, because we know that didn't work.
Yeah.
Because they did. And he never did anything. In fact, he just gave him another $200 and some odd million that they say was an accident. Oh gosh, you make a $80 mistake on your IRS 1040 and they're going to come after you with, the SWAT team at 6 a.m. But somehow in the State Department, they never discovered that hundreds of millions of dollars ended up in the pockets of Iran over the last 3.5 years. So they're funding all of these activities. He pretends to be Clint Eastwood squinting into the camera saying, don't. Now we know that that's a fraud. So Joe Biden's asked, do you think Iran will step down? His only answer is, oh, no. Hey, don't ask me. What do you think I am, president? It's 7:17. Let's get to Jamie Whitten now.
The news is brought to you by Thompson Creek Windows.
So, going from don't to, I don't know, about Iran and Israel. I guess it's a little better than a week ago. Just 1 week ago, Joe Biden was asked, what do you want your legacy to be? And the first thing that came to mind was,
I cured the economy.
I cured the economy. Yesterday, the Dow tumbled 1,000 points for the first time in history. The S&P 500 had the worst day since 2022. There was a global market sell-off. 3.43% lost on the NASDAQ composite. A horrific day across the board as global markets reacted to the bad jobs numbers in America on Friday, a horrific jobs report, in fact. And they reacted to the reality that Kamala Harris could very well win the election and continue, in fact, make even worse the Biden policies of the last 4 years. Joe Biden, what was that again?
Cure the economy.
All right. Well, that doesn't matter because he's not even president, right? Let's check in with the woman who's really running things, Kamala Harris. She didn't have anything to say yesterday because, of course, no one asked her anything, nor will she put herself in a position to be asked any questions about such things as, the economy. But a year ago, she had plenty to say.
All that, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, that is called Bidenomics. That is called Bidenomics, and we are very proud of Bidenomics.
After all, they cured the economy, Julie.
That's right. Everything's fine. Can't buy a house. Your groceries are through the roof. Energy costs are through the roof. I mean, it's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah, and by the way, it's sort of funny because up until yesterday, Karine Jean-Pierre and Biden himself and other people in this administration have been touting a pretty strong Wall Street performance as evidence that everything's fine. This is one of the this is the strongest economy on the planet. That's their talking point, right? Even though Jim and Jane America are feeling it every time they go and buy anything. But they've been saying, that one of the key indicators has been Wall Street, which they lost now. They certainly can't make that claim. That won't stop them from trying.
Well, it's funny that you say that, though, because yesterday they were saying that. They were saying, but overall, it's still up. Yeah. Overall. So they'll manage around this latest, what they like to say is a correction, by saying overall the trend is up.
But so this is what's interesting to me, because I, unlike other people who cover politics in this town for a living, Jake Tapper and George Stephanopoulos, I actually remember things about the last election. And I remember this moment in the debate between Trump and Biden when Trump said, you elect Joe Biden and Wall Street's going to crash. He's going to be a disaster. Listen to what Biden then said.
Look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All right, let's move on. I'm going to move on. Mr. President, I have to move on to the next question.
They said the stock market will boom if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's move on to the next question very quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is booming is his only measure of what's happening. Where I come from in Scranton and Claymont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more dollars. $700 billion more dollars, because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk.
That's Joe Biden in the debate in 2020. Yep. I thought Wall Street's not a measure of a strong economy. That's for billionaires. What about Jim and Jane America?
Yep.
They're struggling right now. And all they've had to point to for the last 2 years, really, is Wall Street.
And they continue to do it, even in this crash.
The fact of the matter is you got to do both with a strong economy. And Wall Street does matter. It keeps people employed when businesses are strong. And also so many of our retirements, our golden years are tied up in Wall Street. And thanks to Joe Biden, he screwed over Jim and Jane America on Main Street, worrying in Scranton at their kitchen table about how they can pay the bills. And now he screwed up your retirement through the 401k with Wall Street. But hey, guys.
But he cured the economy, Larry.
He cured the economy.
All that, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, that is called Bidenomics.
No, dear. It's called Kamlanomics. 724.
Making sense of your world.
There are a lot of things that really tick me off.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news. Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
36. It's O'Connor and Company here on a very busy Tuesday morning as we continue to await what we're told is an imminent announcement from Kamala Harris about who her running mate will be. But who knows? Maybe they're delaying it as events unfold in the Middle East, and maybe they're waiting for a better day.
Maybe someone said no.
That's possible, too. Maybe they're waiting for a better day on Wall Street.
Maybe.
Right? We'll see. The point is they'll pick whoever they want and they'll get away with it. That's what they did with the nomination. Coming up later in the program at 8:05, we're going to hear with Charles Payne, Fox Business Channel, speaking of the lousy day on Wall Street. And at 8:35, Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're pleased to visit once again with Susan Crabtree. She's the national political correspondent at Real Clear Politics, and she's just been breaking exclusive after exclusive over the Secret Service. I got to say, Susan, I agree with your boss, Tom Bevan. You here is coming on later in the program, and boy, was he singing your praises the other day. You really have been doing a great job there. Other journalistic endeavors are jealous of Real Clear Politics right now because of your work. Susan? All right. Well, that proves that there's definitely something wrong with our board.
No.
We'll have to do a digital reset on that at some point. But we are having issues connecting with anyone on the telephone. And me saying this out loud alerts a lot of different engineers. I assure you. Calls are being made as we speak.
Guest.
That is the second guest in a row. And Susan, we are very, very sorry that we can't connect with you.
Susan really has been doing incredible work.
Let's talk about her latest exclusive. Now, it turns out that the former director of the CIA now
Secret Service,
excuse me.
That's
CIA
okay.
is a whole other story that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Ms. Cheadle, who has resigned in disgrace because she was about to be fired. Finally, one person fired.
And again, she had to go up to Congress. She had to be dragged by both Republicans and Democrats.
Everybody
she was
stood by
hanging
her.
on.
Yeah. After the failed assassination attempt against Donald Trump, it really appears to be a lax security story with the Secret Service. Now we get this. The unsolved cocaine mystery in the White House that the Secret Service handled as an investigation, because that's their domain. Anybody gets into the White House, they're going through the Secret Service. So somebody brings in drugs and contraband. How did that happen?
You know, you mentioned something earlier. We sort of teased this, and I'm curious because I think you have a better sense of this. Where was that cocaine found? I thought it was found in the cubbies, where visitors, including the media, can go.
I was told it was.
I don't know though.
I was told it was in a skiff area where you are supposed to put your phone and stuff, but it was in a much more highly secured area.
Ah, okay.
So they were easily able to eliminate.
Certainly
not general public. Well, not general public.
Right.
And certainly not even members of the press. It had to be family or staff. That was my understanding.
Yeah.
Again, my.
Well, that limits it.
If my understanding is wrong, I apologize.
No, I think you're right.
Susan Crabtree is now reporting that there was a partial DNA hit on the bag. We've been hearing off and on that inside people have a pretty good idea of whose cocaine this was, but the evidence wasn't conclusive enough to bring any charges or against anyone. But I want to, anyway, the story that Crabtree has now is that the director, Kimberly Cheadle, moved to destroy the evidence after their investigation was done. The Secret Service Forensic Services Division and the Uniform Division stood firm and rejected the push to dispose of the evidence, according to 3 sources of the Secret Service community. Multiple heated confrontations and disagreements over how best to handle the cocaine ensued after a Secret Service Uniform Division officer found the bag on July 2nd, a quiet Sunday while President Biden and his family were at Camp David in Maryland. But to be clear, the family assembled at the White House first
and
then went
took off. Yes.
To Camp David. This was over the July 4th week. And you remember that image. I'll always remember that video of the family on the balcony at the White House watching the fireworks and Hunter acting hyped up, let's say.
And Jill looking like she was gripping the side of the Titanic.
Exactly. And let's be clear. The woman, Kimberly Cheadle, who wanted to destroy evidence of a crime that occurred at the White House. Who does that? Who in law enforcement
you know who does that?
Investigates a crime at the White House and then 10 days after their so-called investigation is over said, okay, well, let's just destroy all this evidence now. Who in law enforcement does that?
I'll tell you. The law enforcement person who was appointed to the job by Jill Biden.
Yeah.
That's who does that.
Dr. Jill, the matriarch of the family, who knows everything. And I made this point earlier, but I want to reiterate it. The Secret Service, they're known for 2 things. One, the incredible self-sacrifice and courage it takes to literally give your life for your protectee, the president or vice president, whoever you're protecting. The second is their discretion and their code of silence, because they see everything. They hear everything. The deal that the first family makes with the Secret Service is, okay, listen, the good news is these guys are going to take a bullet for you. So you're protected. Nothing's going to happen to you. The bad news is the only way that works is you let them around you at the most intimate times of your lives. They're going to hear your conversations. They're going to know everything, but they will never tell. And that's the deal they make. And so it sort of puts everything in perspective now when you understand that this woman quit when Trump was elected. And then Jill Biden, the matriarch of the family who knows everybody's secrets herself and knows what's going to happen behind closed doors, she went out of her way and said, this is the woman I want to run the Secret Service. Yeah. And now it turns out, according to Ms. Crabtree's reports, which have been 100% dead on during this entire thing, that this woman that Jill hand-selected wanted to destroy the evidence of cocaine found at the White House under the Biden's watch.
Yeah.
What a remarkable story.
But this isn't the first time. There was that case of Hunter Biden throwing his gun away in a trash can, and the Secret Service went and retrieved it. Yeah. So this agency has been doing things that are questionable. Now, this is not the case of the Bush twins. Remember when they went off to college and they lost
had some margaritas.
Had some margaritas and lost their Secret Service detail because they wanted to be, look, that's some hijinks that went on. This is actually the Secret Service inserting themselves into a criminal case of Hunter Biden illegally disposing of a gun in a garbage can and then them going and retrieving that. We've seen some sort of inappropriate behavior between this family and the Secret Service for years.
For those of you who revere agencies like the Secret Service, and rightly so, given the reputation they've had since the late 19th century when it was established by President Grant, sadly, we have one other story about the Secret Service, and it relates directly to the decisions that were made in Butler, Pennsylvania that led to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. We'll give you those details coming up. It's 7:44.
Making sense of your world.
Greatly appreciated.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
I love listening to you.
Making sense of the news.
Hey, it's Chris Plant. Find out what the media don't want you to know. Coming up this morning at 9, right here on WMAL.
Hats off to Jesse Waters, who's been doing some really great reporting on the Secret Service failures in Butler, Pennsylvania. As we know now, thanks to his reporting and things that have been revealed through Chuck Grassley and Senator Hawley from Missouri, the first time counter snipers had ever been deployed to a Trump rally was that day in Butler. Those counter snipers were not on radio. They were communicating via text message without Wi-Fi. And the command center, we kept hearing, well, the local police, law enforcement, if they see something, then they would phone it into the command center on their radios. Well, maybe they were on different frequencies. No, they were in a different room. Two different command centers from the Secret Service. No one was talking to each other. And then there's last night's revelation from Jesse Waters.
Who signed off on this disastrous plan? According to whistleblowers who've spoken to Senator Josh Hawley, it all comes down to the lead site agent, who they claim is inexperienced and incompetent. Senator Josh Hawley's been speaking with these whistleblowers, and he joins us now. Senator, what have these whistleblowers been telling your office?
Well, what they've been saying, Jesse, is that this individual, the site agent, the lead agent, was known to the Trump campaign to be inexperienced, to be ineffectual, to be, frankly, incompetent at their job. Well, I'm also told by whistleblowers that on that day, she was not enforcing the normal security protocols. She was not checking people's IDs. She did not use Secret Service agents. Most of the agents there that day were not Secret Service agents. They were Homeland Security agents. And get this, Jesse, most of them had never worked a rally before. And yet this is who she chose to staff the event with, and she didn't train them or integrate them. From top to bottom, it was a total disaster. Jesse, it is a miracle, not only that Trump is alive, but that more good Americans were not killed. It's unbelievable.
You're saying that the site agent in charge of this security in Butler wasn't checking IDs? What do you mean? She was just letting people in?
That is what whistleblowers tell me, is that IDs were not checked to allow individuals into secure areas, Jesse. In other words, it was a total free-for-all. Whistleblowers portray to me a circumstance, a situation that was totally out of control, where people were milling around, including in what were supposed to be highly secure areas. Nobody knew who they were. By the way, it was also the lead site agent's job to make sure that the line of sight for where Trump was clear, that agents could see all angles. And she didn't do that. In fact, I'm told that the line of sight was obstructed, which means that agents from different angles couldn't really see around Trump, couldn't see potential dangers to Trump. This is pretty textbook stuff, Jesse. And what whistleblowers say to me is none of it was done properly. None of it was done by the book. And frankly, when you know all that, it's amazing more people weren't killed.
Now, I hate to actually pile on here and tell you that it's worse than what you just heard, but it is worse. Because not only has that lead agent not been fired, that lead agent, as we speak, is still responsible for doing the same duties on her job.
This is madness.
It is absolute madness. And one word, if she's so great, have her handle the Secret Service detail and all the preparations for Kamala Harris's events and rallies, right? I mean, again, this goes back to this underlying unspoken but clearly evident impression that at the highest levels of the Secret Service and even above the highest levels of the Secret Service at Homeland Security, that there was a sort of, give Trump the bare minimum that he needs, but let's not go overboard. I mean, because it's only Trump, right?
And let's not give RFK anything.
Right. And it literally took an assassin's bullet to change that. Or has it changed? Be great to know. Well, we promised you we would continue focusing on the story, even though so many others in the media will not. And